Welcome back. We continue once again our Nullitaire playthrough of Liberty or Death. So once again, Nullitaire means in this context 0 players. We're playing all the bots against each other. If you haven't seen the previous videos in the series, I'll put a link in the description, and I recommend viewing those first. Right now, we just finished the second winter quarters round, so that means in game terms, it's the spring of 1777 now. Having a look at the situation on the board, the most notable thing is that support is way up to 25 now. The British spent a lot of resources during the winter quarters phase to reward loyalty. So there's a lot of support on the board right now. Opposition is down at 12. So surely the Patriots are going to want to do something about that. Okay. The French are, well, they're getting there. French prep right now is at 10. It has to be up to at least 16 before they can play the Treaty of Alliance. And by the way, I haven't mentioned so far in the playthrough anything about Brilliant Stroke cards. And that's because every faction, the bots will not play their Brilliant Stroke until after the Treaty of Alliance has been played. Okay, so we can safely ignore those until the Treaty of Alliance comes into play. All right, well, let's get on to the next card. The first card is Battle of Moores Creek Bridge, and the British are first up. Everyone's eligible because of, we just played the winter quarters round. So it says, Tories win. In any one space, replace every one militia with 2 Tories. All right, well, looking at British bots event or command space, the third bullet point, event places Tories in active opposition with none. And that is the case. There are a couple of spaces on the board, notably Philadelphia and New Hampshire, that are at active opposition, have militia, and no Tories. Okay, Massachusetts has a Tory still sitting there from when the British marched out of there but left their one Tory behind. Okay, so British bot will take the event and either choose New Hampshire, removing that one militia and replacing it with 2 Tories, or choose Philadelphia, removing those 2 militia and placing 4 Tories. We're looking at the rules in this case. We're told event placement 8.3.4, place, remove, or locate as many pieces as events, availability, and stacking allow. So my understanding of this is that British bot is going to select Philadelphia because it will allow them to remove 2 militia and put in 4 Tories, whereas selecting New Hampshire will remove only 1 militia and add 2 Tories. So if we are selecting spaces in order to place, remove, or locate as many pieces as possible, then British bot will select Philadelphia. So the British take back control of Philadelphia once again. Because the British took the event, the next eligible faction can take a command and special activity, and the next available faction is the Patriots. So the Patriots do have resources. They're at 8 right now. So they move on in their flow chart. Rebel cubes plus leader greater than active royalist pieces in a space with both. Well, for the first time in the game, that actually is the case. Massachusetts has rebel cubes and the leader Washington there. And that is greater than the active royalist pieces in the space. And there are, both are in the space. So there's a single Tory there. Okay, so this actually does trigger battle. It's going to be one heck of a one-sided battle. but that's what Patriot Bot is going to do. Okay, so it says on the faction foldout here, select all spaces where the rebel force level, if possible, including the French. Of course, that's not possible. The French aren't even in the colonies yet. Plus modifiers exceeds the British force level plus modifiers. First with Washington, then in highest population, then where most villages, then elsewhere. All right, well, when I read that, I thought, well, wait a minute, why does it say British there? British force level. Over here, it says Royalist. So that seemed to me a bit odd. And if we take that literally, that would mean that Patriot Bot never chooses to battle the Indians, because it's only looking for British force level. So I went to the rule book on this, and so looked at this where this is in the rule book, because the faction foldout is sometimes, it just gives you part of the story sometimes, and these instructions can be spelled out more explicitly in the rule book. But here it says, select all spaces where the rebellion force level, including as many French as possible, plus modifiers exceeds the Royalist force level, plus modifiers. Okay, so there seems to be a typo here, either in the rule book or on the faction foldout. I went to Board Game Geek, and there is an official errata there, and I did not see this one in the errata that's already available. So I sent a message to that forum about this. I assume that this is incorrect, that should say Royalist force level plus modifiers and not British. Because again, it would be rather strange to have the Patriot Bot never select the Indians for battling. That seems a little limited. and given that over here, we checked for Royalist pieces, so we included the Indians in that. Okay, so I assume this is wrong. So I'm gonna operate under the assumption that should say Royalist there. So I'm gonna fix my player aid. There we go, fixed. It was hard to write Royalist in that tiny little piece of paper, but I did the best I could. Anyway, I probably won't leave that there, but in any case, it's kind of fun. So, okay, so let's work out what's going to happen here. So they're going to select all spaces where the rebel force level plus modifiers exceeds the Royalist force level plus modifiers. Okay. So the way battle works here is we have to pay 1 resource per space, and if the French are involved, they also pay, but they won't be involved. And then 1 space at a time, we execute according to these battle procedures, this rather daunting table. But the way the bots work here, or the Patriot Bot anyway, is we have to figure out what the rebel force level plus modifiers are, and then compare that to the Royalist force level plus modifiers. So we figure out the force level for the attackers, we add the defender loss level modifiers to that, then we work out the defending player's force level, and we add the attacker loss levels to that. And so long as the rebel force level plus modifiers turns out to be greater than the Royalist force level plus modifiers, then the Patriots will battle in that space. Okay. So I've worked it out for Massachusetts. It's pretty obvious that the rebel force level plus modifiers is going to exceed the Royalists here, but I thought it's worth working out anyway. So since the Patriots are attacking, all of their cubes, all their continentals count for 1, and any activated militia count for half. Okay, so there's no reason to activate that militia. They won't do that. So the continentals are 11. Okay. So they have a force level of 11. Now they add the defender loss level. So just going down the line, at least half attacking cubes are regulars. No. At least 1 attacking side piece is underground. Yes, there's that underground militia there. So it actually does add 1 to the defender loss level. Okay, so we're at 12 now. At least 1 attacking leader. Yes, Washington is in the space. So we're at 13. attacking, including French with Lauzon. No, that's not the case. British attacking a blockaded city? No. British attacking in West Indies, or at least one squadron is present? No. Per defending fort? There are no defending forts. Indians defending in Azure province? No. Patriots French defending with Washington? No. Okay, so the rebellion force level plus modifiers is 13. Okay, and then let's work out the other side. Well, there's one Tory there. So on the defending side, all cubes count for 1. All active militia or war parties count for half, and then forts count for 1. Okay, so there's 1. So they have a force level of 1. So we add the attacker loss levels to that. Okay, at least half defending cubes are regulars? No. At least one defending side piece is underground? No. At least one defending leader? No. British defending in a blockaded city? No. British defending in West Indies and at least one squadron is present? No. And per defending fort? Well, there's no defending fort, so no. Okay, so basically we have 13 to 1. Clearly, the rebellion has the advantage there. So Patriot Bot will select that space for a battle. So before working out that battle in Massachusetts, we need to figure out whether or not there are any other spaces where the Patriots any other spaces that the Patriots will select for battle. Okay, well, battle requires a space with Patriot and Royalist pieces. There's only one other space on the board with Patriot and Royalist pieces, and that's Quebec. So now the question is, will the Patriots select Quebec for a battle? This is kind of an interesting interpretive question because obviously the 4 militia there are all underground. So the question is, would Patriot Bot consider activating those militia to add to their force level? Right, they get to count activated militia, as half. So they could, conceivably activate those 4 militia and gain 2 force level in their battle there. Or if they leave them all underground, then their force level would be 0. So it's just an interesting question whether or not they would do that. Now, I mean, knowing the rules of the game, it would be kind of stupid of them to activate those underground militia. First of all, you get a defense loss level modifier for having at least 1 underground. You get a +1 for that. And having a force level of only 2 means you don't get to roll any dice, right? If your force level is less than or equal to 2, then you don't roll any dice. So having a force level of 2 or lower doesn't do anything as far as adding to the defender's loss level. Okay, so having a force level of 2 and having a force level of 0 come to the same thing as far as the battle is concerned. You need to have a force level of at least 3 for that to have any effect beyond the modifiers that you get automatically. Okay, so from a strategic point of view, Patriot Bot obviously shouldn't activate those militia. But the question is whether or not they would, whether or not Patriot Bot gives us any priorities or any instructions on what to do. Well, it turns out that there are no instructions at all from the Patriot Bot or any other bot except the Indians when it comes to activating militia or war parties. So the Patriot Bot just doesn't tell us at all whether or not we should ever consider activating their militia to add to a force level. So I think that what that means is that Patriot Bot never considers that. Patriot Bot just will count activated militia that are already there toward the force level, but they're not going to consider activating any to add to their force level. Okay, at least that's how I understand it. Since we're not told otherwise, that seems to be the way we deal with it. Okay, and by the way, I just said that the Indians are the only faction that actually consider this. Here's their instructions. Defending in battle. If there are any villages in the battle space, activate all but one underground war party. Otherwise, activate no underground war parties. Okay, so that's the only instruction from any faction dealing with activating war parties or militia. Okay, so it looks like the Indians also will only activate. It looks like the Indians are only going to activate in a certain situation, and the Patriots won't ever activate their militia at all. Okay, at least that's the way I'm understanding it. Okay, so what we need to do then is figure out the force level plus modifiers for both sides in Quebec and see if the rebellion side has an advantage there. So in Quebec, the force level for the rebellion will be simply 0. They're not going to activate any of their underground militia, so 0. And so going through defender loss level modifiers, at least half attacking cubes regulars, no. At least one attacking side pieces underground, yes. All 4 of those militia underground, so they get +1 for that, so they're at 1 right now. At least one attacking leader, no. Attack including French with Lausanne, no. British attacking blockaded city, no. British attacking West Indies and at least one squadron present, no. Per defending fort, yes. The British have a fort there. So they're back to 0. Indians defending in Indian Reserve, ooh, yes. The Indians are there, and that is Indian Reserve, so they're at -1. Patriots and French defending with Washington, no. Okay, so the rebellion force level plus modifiers is -1. Doesn't look good for selecting Quebec as a battle space. All right, but let's work out the other side anyway. And there is, again, another interpretive question here, right? Of course, I just showed you that the Indians have their own instructions for when they're defending. If they're in a space with a village, they're not in a space with a village here. But in any case, they don't make the decisions this time because this would be a combined defense. So for the Royalists, the British make all the choices. So even if there were a village there, the Indians wouldn't be making the choices, the British would. And the British bot doesn't give us any instructions to say, try to protect a village or something like that. The British presumably don't care about the Indian villages. So I think that just like with Patriot bot, I think British bot just never considers activating any war parties because we're not given any instructions to say that they will. Okay, so let's work out the defense. The Royalist force level plus modifiers here and see if it manages to be less than -1. Seems unlikely. Okay, so we have a Tory there and a fort and those 3 underground war parties. All right, well, defending, we count all the cubes, so that's 1 for the cube. There are no active war parties, so we don't count those. And we count 1 for the fort. So they start with a 2 force level. And now we add the attacker loss level modifiers. At least half defending cubes are regulars, no. At least 1 defending side piece is underground, yes. They have those underground war parties. So that's, again, a reason to leave them underground because they get this bonus. Okay, so they're now at 3. At least 1 defending leader, no. British defending in a blockaded city, no. British defending in West Indies and at least 1 squadron is present, no. Per defending fort, yes, they do have a fort. So that adds another 1. So they end up with 4. Okay, -1 to 4, no. Patriot bot's not going to select this space for a battle. It's now time to work out the battle in Massachusetts. So the Patriots have paid 1 resource for this battle. And since their force level is 11, they get to roll dice. They get to roll 3 dice. Okay, if force level is greater than or equal to 3, then force level divided by 3 rounded down is the number of dice they get to roll. So 11 divided by 3 rounded down, that's 3 dice. And the defenders here, the Royalists, don't get to roll any dice because they only have a force level of 1, and when the force level is less than or equal to 2, there's no die roll. Okay, so the Patriots have already rolled, and they rolled overkill. 7. Okay, And we already worked out the defender loss level modifiers in this case is 2. So that's 9. Yeah, more than enough to take out that that lone Tory. Okay, on the other side, the force level is well they have 0, right? Because they didn't get to roll any dice, and the modifiers also give them 0. Okay, so that means that that Tory will be removed to casualties, and that's the end of the battle. Win the day is not coming to play here because although the loser is removing a cube, they're not removing 2 or more pieces. Okay, so that's the end of the battle. Cumulative British casualties goes up 1 more, and so does French prep. Patriot Bot can now use a special activity, and they would like to use partisans. They do have some resources. They're at 7, so they can do this. So they're going to partisans in a space with underground militia and enemy. First to remove a village, then to remove most war parties. Okay, well, partisan says we have to choose a space with underground militia and royalist pieces and no battle in the space. Okay, so they couldn't choose Massachusetts here, even if there were royalist pieces still left there. Well, the only space where they can do this is Quebec. All right, so it says partisans in a space with underground militia and enemy. First to remove a village. There's no village there. Then to remove the most war parties. Okay, well, there's 3 war parties there, so they'd like to remove as many of those as possible. All right, well, the second part of the procedure here, activate 2 underground militia, remove 1 of the 2, and remove 2 royalist units. Okay, so that would maximize removing war parties here. So Patriot Bot will use partisans in Quebec. They will activate 2 of their underground militia, remove 1 of them, and then remove 2 war parties. That gives the rebellion control of Quebec once again. All right, that's the end of the Patriots' turn. On to the next card. The next card is Tory is tested. The Indians are first eligible. The event says place 3 Tories in 1 colony with British control. Should be no surprise at all that the Indians are not at all interested in doing that. So we'll carry on. Support plus a d6 greater than opposition. Well, support is way more than opposition right now. So the answer is yes. The die roll is irrelevant. Gather would place 2 or more villages. Actually, yes. The Southwest has room for a village and plenty of war parties there to place that village. And New York also has room for a village and plenty of war parties there for that. So Indian Bot is going to gather. Place villages where room and 3 or more war parties. 2 or more if corn planter in the space, first with the Indian leader. Okay, so Indian Bot, remember that gather is free in the first Indian province. Okay, and the Indians have 1 resource. So they can gather in both of these spaces. It'll be free in the Southwest. They'll remove 2 war parties there to place a village, and they'll pay their 1 resource for New York and remove only 1 of those war parties to place a village there because corn planter's in the space. And his special ability is gather builds villages for 1 war party in the space. All right, so that will be, they will have no more resources after those 2 gathers, so that will be the end of their command phase. For their special activity, they are now at 0 resources. They'd like to warpath, but because they're now at 0 resources, they're going to trade instead. So once again, they're going to choose a village space with the most war parties. Right now, that would be New York. And they'll activate 1 of those war parties and ask the British for resources. So when the Indians request resources from the British using trade, the British roll a d6. And if the roll is less than British resources, they offer to transfer resources equal to half, round up the number rolled to the Indian resources. Okay, well, the British have 4 resources right now, which is more than the Indians' 0, and they rolled a 3. Okay, which is less than the resources they have, 4. Therefore, they will offer to transfer half of that, rounded up, which would be 2, to Indian resources. Okay, so Indian bot has activated one war party in New York, and the British will lose 2 resources, and the Indians will gain 2 resources. The French are next eligible, and they can take the event or in limited command. Well, the event says replace Tories in one colony with militia, place 2 propaganda there. And the French are not interested in that. None of the questions in their event or command box are answered in the affirmative. So they carry on. French resources greater than 0, yes, they're at 9. The Treaty of Alliance has not been played. Patriot resources less than a D3. No, the Patriots have 7 resources, so they have plenty of resources. So the French are going to use French agent mobilization, place 2 militia, or if not possible, 1 continental, in Quebec, New York, New Hampshire, or Massachusetts, first to add most rebel control. Well, the rebels control all those spaces with the exception of New York. And adding 2 militia there certainly wouldn't make a dent in the British control. All right, so they're going to choose to place these militia where they're the most Patriot units. And it's pretty clear where that is. That's going to be Massachusetts. Okay, so the French are going to use French agent mobilization to place 2 militia in Massachusetts. Since they only have a limited command available, that's all they'll get to do. The French, have really struggled to use any special activities in this game. They'd like to be preparing for war a little bit more, get French prep up, and play the Treaty of Alliance, but they've really struggled to make that happen. It seems like every time it's their turn, they have a limited command available, and that's it. Okay, well, this is no different than usual then. Actually, come to think of it, the French couldn't use French agent mobilization to place pieces in New York anyway, because they're not able to do French agent mobilization at active support. So that wasn't even an option. The next card is George Rogers Clark's Illinois campaign. The Patriots are first eligible. The event says Patriot offensive succeeds. Patriots may place 2 militia and free partisans in both Northwest and Southwest. And the Patriot bot is going to take that. Looking at their second bullet point in the event or command box, event places underground militia in at least 1 active support or village space with none. Well, this event would place underground militia in both the Northwest and the Southwest, where there are 2 villages each. And it's going to allow the Patriots to free partisans there. Okay, so this is going to be quite a blow to the Indians. Because the Patriots are using partisans, they follow the priorities on their flow chart. It says partisans in a space with underground militia and enemy, first to remove a village, then to remove most war parties. Okay, well, they can't remove a village because they're protected by those war parties. So they're going to try to remove the most war parties they can. So they're going to use the second option there. Activate 2 underground militia, remove 1 of the 2 militia, and remove 2 royalist units. Okay, so Patriots using partisans here will activate both of their militia, remove 1 of them, and then take out both of the war parties. And they're going to do that same procedure in both the Northwest and the Southwest. Okay, as I said, that's quite a blow to the Indians. All those 4 villages are now completely undefended. Okay, but that's the Patriot turn. The British are next eligible. They can take a full command and special activity. So on the British flow chart now, British resources are greater than 0. They're at 2. There are 10 or more regulars on the map, but the rebels don't control a city. So the answer to that is no. Available British regulars greater than 1d6. The answer to that is yes, because there are 11 available British regulars. So no matter what the roll is, that will be yes. So British bot is going to muster. Okay. So we recall that the muster command first places up to 6 regulars in one city or an adjacent colony. Okay, there are no blockades right now. So this means that any city or colony, they can place their regulars. Okay, So first in neutral or passive, within that first to add British control, then where Tories are the only British units, then elsewhere within each first and highest population. Well, what that comes down to is they want to select a neutral or passive space, again, any city or colony, to add British control, and they'd like to choose the highest population possible. All right, well, that means they want to choose a two population space. Okay, they can't choose Virginia or New York City because those are both active. They want to choose a neutral or passive space. So they can choose Connecticut, Rhode Island. That's a two population space. That's neutral or passive, and adding 6 regulars there would give them control. Similarly with Maryland, Delaware, and similarly with North Carolina. So they can choose, any of those 3 spaces would satisfy these priorities. Okay, so they rolled randomly, to choose randomly among those. They rolled a 2-1. That gives them Quebec, New York. But following it down, they get Connecticut, Rhode Island. Okay, so British bot is going to muster in Connecticut, Rhode Island, and add 6 regulars there. The situation looks familiar. Didn't we have this kind of standoff at the state line before in this game? All right. Well, anyway, the Royalists take control again of Connecticut, Rhode Island. Okay, and the British paid 1 resource for that. They only have 1 resource left, and now it's time to place Tories. So Tories, remember, can be placed in any city or colony that is containing or adjacent to regulars or forts, but not at active opposition. Okay. So then place Tories, first where regulars are the only British cubes, within that first where regulars were just placed. Okay, well, obviously Connecticut, Rhode Island, they'll place 2 Tories there. They don't have to pay for that because they've already paid for that space. The only other space on the map where there are British regulars but no Tories is Savannah. So a British bot will pay their last resource to place 2 Tories in Savannah. The British are now out of resources, but there's still more that they could possibly do with muster. So the third bullet point, then in one space, first one already selected. If opposition is greater than support plus a D3, it certainly isn't. Support is way higher than opposition, so that D3 is certainly not going to make a difference. And in any case, the British don't have any money, so they couldn't reward loyalty even if they wanted to. So the second part of that priority, if no reward loyalty, place a fort in a colony with 5 or more British cubes and no British fort. Okay, well, there are a couple of choices here, actually. Well, no, there aren't a couple of choices. I was just going to say Norfolk would be a possibility, but they can't select the space because they have no more resources. So they have to do this in either, if they're going to do this, they have to do it in one of the spaces they've already selected and paid for. So that is Connecticut, Rhode Island, or Savannah. Okay, but obviously 5 or more British cubes. Well, that is Connecticut, Rhode Island. And they do have a fort available there, the last one. So they will replace 3 cubes in Connecticut, Rhode Island, and put a fort there. Again, that doesn't cost them anything because they've already paid for that space. Okay, so now they can use a special activity. And they'd like to skirmish, but skirmish can only be done in a space with British regulars and rebellion pieces. And right now there are no spaces with British regulars and rebellion pieces. So they can't skirmish. Okay. So they use naval pressure instead. And of course, F&I equals 0 because the Treaty of Alliance has not been played yet, so they simply take 1 D3 resources. So they already rolled on that, they rolled a 1. So the British gain 1 resource. The next card is Tronçon de Coudray, arrives in America. The French are first eligible. Their half of this event says Patriot Resources plus 3. Well, the French are not interested in that. If it would add to their resources, they'd take it, but not for the Patriot Resources. Okay, so moving on. French resources greater than 0. Yes, they're at 8. Treaty of Alliance has not been played. Patriot resources are at 7, so they have plenty. So the French will use French agent mobilization once again to place 2 militia. They can't add any rebel control in this case. So once again, they're just gonna add 2 where they're already the most patriot units. And as usual, that's Massachusetts. So the French will use French agent mobilization to add 2 militia to Massachusetts. Surprisingly, the French are actually able to use a special activity. So they will use préparer la guerre. Move 1 blockade from unavailable to the West Indies. If none, move up to 3 regulars from unavailable to available. Okay, so they will move, since all their squadrons are already in the West Indies, they'll move 3 regulars from unavailable to available. That moves French prep up once again, and it is now at 14. The French are getting close to playing the Treaty of Alliance. The Indians are next eligible. They can take the event or a limited command. The event says, remove 2 Continentals and 2 French regulars from 1 space to available. Obviously, there are no French regulars on the map, so that part is irrelevant. But they still could use that to remove 2 Continentals. In their event or command box here, that last bullet point came into play. The event is effective. Yes, it would do something. There are 4 more villages on the map. Yes, there are 5 now. And so they had to roll a d6, but it came up with 1. So that is not 5 or higher, so they will not take the event. Okay, so let's take a limited command instead. Okay, support plus a d6 is greater than opposition. Yes, support is, again, way higher than opposition, so the d6 is irrelevant. Gather would place 2 or more villages. No, right now Gather would only place 1 village. Or a d6 is less than the available war parties. Yes to that. There are 10 available war parties, so any roll of a d6 will be less than that. Okay, so the Indian bot will gather. So place villages where room and 3 or more war parties, 2 or more if corn planter in the space. All right, well, that is exactly what Indian bot is going to do. Corn planters in that space, and there's room for a village. So Indian bot will gather in New York to place another village. We remember that corn planter's special ability is that gather builds villages for 1 more party. So Indian bot will remove that 1 active war party and place a village in New York. Because this is a limited command, that's all they'll get to do this turn. And since New York is not an Indian Reserve province, they will actually have to pay a resource for it. Okay, I think I'm going to end this video here. We got through, I think, 4 cards this round. But trying to figure out that battle took a little bit. So I think that's good for this time. Okay, well, as always, if you like this video, you want to see more stuff like this, do the usual things like subscribe, comment, let me know what you think. I'll carry on with this playthrough, of course, but I might try to show some other things as well, some other Nullitaire playthroughs of other games, or some bots of my own creation, other things like that. So again, let me know what you think, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.